What if I told you that Ferrari could have committed its entire 2026 project before even starting the season? What if a new car had a structural flaw so serious that a single corner could destroy its chassis? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Ferrari traveled to Yas Marina with a seemingly routine objective: to participate in Pirelli tire testing ahead of the 2026 season. This type of session is usually considered a technical procedure, a collaboration between the teams and the official compound supplier to collect data under controlled conditions. But in this case, the event became the epicenter of an unprecedented internal crisis for the Scuderia. The car used was an adapted version of the SF25, the current single-seater, modified to simulate certain characteristics of the future 2026 design. This type of vehicle, known as mule cars, allows teams to experiment with parts, structures, and aerodynamic behaviors that will be essential under the new regulations. And this is where the problem begins. During the tests in Abu Dhabi, several sensors installed on the chassis began to register unexpected behavior. In high-speed corners, such as the famous Turn 9 of the Yas Marina circuit, the car's monocoque deformed. It was not a normal bending such as any structure can present within safe limits, but rather an abnormal torsion that exceeded the expected margins. This distortion directly affected the car's aerodynamic platform, breaking the floor seal and, as a consequence, causing a sudden loss of rear downforce. This phenomenon is particularly dangerous in modern F1. Current cars, and those of 2026 even more so, depend on the so-called ground effect to generate grip. The stability of the car is closely linked to the precision with which the air flows under the flat bottom. If the ground loses contact or its profile is altered, the car can become uncontrollable. And that's what happened in Abu Dhabi. Data showed that under extreme lateral loads, the SF25 mule car suffered such a severe alteration in its ride height that pilots reported feelings of instability with no apparent explanation. At first, engineers attributed these symptoms to tuning errors or possible suspension imbalances. There was even speculation that they could have been piloting errors. However, once the telemetry was analyzed with the FIA measurements, it became clear that the problem was structural. The monocoque was twisting. A misconception. And here appears the true trigger of the crisis. According to technical sources close to the team and independent reports from specialized media, Ferrari would have opted for a lighter architecture in the chassis design of the 2026 car in order to comply with the new minimum weight requirements, which will be drastically reduced in the next regulatory era. This weight reduction, however, would have been achieved at the cost of compromising the rigidity of the monocoque, particularly at the junction between the front suspension and the survival cell. This technical choice, while at first it may seem like a calculated risk, proved to be an error in judgment. The evidence suggests that, had this weakness not been detected now, the car would have debuted in 2026 with a structure unable to withstand the lateral forces experienced at tracks such as Silverstone, Suzuka, or Spa. A failure that would not only compromise performance, but also the safety of the pilots. The situation became even worse when data confirming these problems began to leak. Internal documents, sensor recordings, and CFD simulations appeared in specialized technical forums and aerodynamic analysis media. Although the exact source of a leak has not been identified, it is believed that it could have been an external technician involved in materials analysis or a downstream supplier. The truth is that the information is already circulating, and with it, Ferrari's prestige as a top-level manufacturer has been momentarily called into question. This leak not only exposes a technical weakness, reveals a deep knowledge management problem within Maranello. How is it possible that such a critical design decision went undetected before testing? Where were the quality controls? And how will this affect the development of the actual 2026 car, which should already be in advanced production? Thus, what should have been a simple tire test session has become a serious warning for Ferrari's entire technical structure. A reminder that in Formula One, miscalculations are paid for with time, prestige, and lost championships. What is happening inside Ferrari right now is not a simple technical crisis. It is an internal rift that has exposed structural tensions between departments, design philosophies, and strategic priorities. Engineers aren't just alarmed by the data, they are divided. The Scuderia faces a dilemma that goes far beyond a design correction. It is a battle between pride, schedule pressure, and the technical integrity of a project that will define its destiny for years to come. As if that were not enough, the tension also extends to the political level. Team manager Frederic Vasseur is in an awkward position. Having led a quiet rebuild since his arrival in 2023, he had managed to reduce operational errors and return strategic consistency to Ferrari. But this ruling threatens to undermine that image of recovered efficiency. And the fact that the leak has reached specialized media without communication control by the team further complicates its handling. From the offices of Maranello, the pressures also come from another side. Ferrari shareholders and business partners demand results. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton to the Scuderia was not only a sporting coup, but an operation with commercial impact and global image. The idea was clear: 2025 as a transition and 2026 as the year of reconquest. But now, with this leaked technical scandal and in the middle of pre-season, the strategic vision is shaky. The pilots are also involved in this conflict, although not publicly. Charles Leclerc, who has already experienced multiple failures for Ferrari since his debut with the team, is in a stage where his confidence is hanging by a thread. And Hamilton, a newcomer, surely observes with concern how the team, in which he has placed his last big professional bet, shows technical cracks from the first test. Ferrari has not issued any official statement about the severity of the structural failure, much less about the data leak. But within the world of Formula One, silence is the most revealing language. The lack of denials, added to indirect confirmation by technical analysts and internal reports in specialized forums, suggests that the problem is not only real, but urgent. The Scuderia now faces one of those moments that define the trajectory of an organization. With a car in development that has been publicly discredited by its own data, and with a 2025 season in full swing, the room for maneuver is minimal. But the problem is not only technical, it is also symbolic. This crisis does not just represent a failure in the monohull, represents a possible failure in Ferrari's internal decision-making model. A model that has historically oscillated between Italian engineering tradition and the corporate pressure of a global automotive giant. The most worrying thing for Ferrari is not only that a structural weakness has been found, is the context in which it was found. The car does not officially exist yet. We're talking about a test mule, a rolling laboratory. The objective of these sessions was to confirm concepts, validate design lines. But if one of those central concepts, that of a lighter and thinner chassis for 2026, has failed, that means that some of the work already done for next year's car could be scrapped entirely. And that means loss of time, money, and internal confidence. In Maranello, the situation is tense. The engineers are undergoing intensive reviews by the quality control area. Several wind tunnel simulations that were scheduled for January have been temporarily suspended, and some contracts with external composite suppliers have been placed under review. It is suspected that part of the problem may be related not only to the monocoque architecture, but also to material quality or outsourced assembly processes. All this happens while the international paddock watches. Formula One is not a sport that forgives structural errors. The technical advantage lost in winter translates into months of chasing during the season. McLaren, for example, has opted for aggressive but incremental development. Red Bull has focused its attention on strengthening its technical platform after a turbulent season. Mercedes has invested in hybrid solutions that allow them to be flexible between design philosophies. Everyone moves, everyone evolves. And Ferrari cannot allow itself to remain frozen for fear of making mistakes again. The big question now floating around Maranello is whether they should publicly assume that the 2026 car will need a complete redesign, or whether they will opt for a silent correction without admitting errors. But that decision is not only communicational. It has profound implications for sports strategy. Because if Ferrari opts to rebuild the chassis from scratch, it will probably lose some of its ability to develop the aerodynamic package on time. And that would mean arriving late for the first collective test in 2026. A disadvantage that, in this era of restricted budgets and development limits, may be insurmountable. What happened in Abu Dhabi was not simply a technical warning. It was a mirror that forced Ferrari to look at itself and face an uncomfortable truth, that its vision for 2026 may be built on a more fragile foundation than they want to admit. What was designed to project the definitive return of the Scuderia to the technical leadership of Formula One today hangs by a thread. And that thread is time. The time that passes while other teams advance. Unforgiving time in this sport where every decision has cumulative consequences. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.